tarot cards are often the first step and basis for a seeker of metaphysical knowledge, like you, to discover your forever path. That could be astrology, numerology, healing arts, or any other spiritual interest you discover along the way. Elaine Ireland is not only a teacher of tarot, she is a mentor who supports you and will be there for you. Visit www.ElaineIrelandTarotMaster.com now and discover how Elaine's mentoring, tarot card and psychic readings, tarot card classes, and more help you to grow into the true being you are meant to be. Welcome to Conversations with the Ancients, where you're about to discover a whole different world than the one that, up until now, you've believed you're familiar with. World-renowned metaphysicist, practicing psychic, and tarot teacher Elaine Ireland invites you on a journey where you'll hear voices from the past, interviews with some of the greatest metaphysicians you've never heard of, because in their time, they needed to move with stealth. You'll also meet today's spirit mediums, healers, and others who will show you a side of the paranormal you've never seen before. Be sure you visit our website at conversationswiththeancients.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now, hear the words of metaphysicians who blazed the trail. You're not in jail, thanks to them.
Maxine Taylor. Oh, public, you have no idea. Maxine has been so patient. We started this over a week ago, and because of technology, probably my stupid fingers, we just could not get it to go. And she was gracious enough to reschedule. And then today, we figured out how to get her on. It's been, yes, Mercury's in retrograde, right, Maxine?
You know, I have decided that Mercury is stronger. I'm being facetious. Mercury is stronger when it's in the shadow of the retrograde, which it is now, as you so beautifully explained. Because in the shadow, it's kind of like Paul Revere and the Raiders. Not the Raiders, the singing group, but Paul Revere riding his poor overworked horse through the town saying, the British are coming, the British are coming. And the Mercury retrograde is, the British are coming, the British are coming. When it goes, that's the shadow of the retrograde. When it goes into retrograde, it's like, the British are here. I mean, I'm sure the British don't do that.
Folks, can you tell that Miss Taylor is a world-renowned astrologer? I met this lady many years ago at a conference, and I had the pleasure of being assigned to her as her assistant. And she certainly didn't need an assistant, but I made sure that people got up, got to bed, got fed, had their drinks, got at the right place at the right time. And she was absolutely a wonderful human being to work with. And got to sit in on a little bit of her classes because I had 3 other people I had to make sure were okay, but we've gotten to know each other over the years, and she's done some work for me and with me, and I could not be any more honored to have you with me today on this podcast. The podcast itself is a dream coming true, and to have you included is just awesome. Can you tell?
And I am honored that you asked me. It's so wonderful to reconnect with you, because when I looked at your picture, I, of course, instantly recognized you, and I remember how all of the volunteers, and you were one of them, of course, were just running to keep pace with all the work that had to be done. And you probably all celebrated, religiously after the conference was over, because it was a lot of work for you guys.
It was 4 days of work, but I met such wonderful people, and all 3, I had 4 people, and they're 3, we've become friends, and I lost touch with you. You're the only one that I did not keep as close a touch to over the years. But I kind of watched you from a distance as your career continued to explode. And it was just wonderful. So did did I take you to the airport that day when you left, or
You
did you?
certainly did. You
I
said,
thought I did, but I wasn't sure. I took not only my people, but if there were other people that needed to go, we just loaded my car up. You know, as did other volunteers, as did other, however big your car was, and they needed to go to the airport. Their bags are packed. Okay, and we picked people up at the airport. It was 3 days of a wonderful, wonderful conference put on by Tammy Holmes. Talk about running crazy. Tammy Holmes, God bless her. She was just everywhere. I swear to goodness, that woman duplicated herself at least into 5 people a day. And still, I'd look around and she was gone, and then she was to my left, and then at the same moment she was to my right, and I'm going, how is Tammy doing this? She's transitioning. She's going into facets of herself, and it was wonderful. But you have a way of calmness about you, even in the midst of chaos. You just have this calmness about you.
thank you.
So
I feel like I'm, levitating and ready to scream. So the fact that it comes across as calm is very reassuring.
I try to do that, but I don't always succeed. But one of the reasons I wanted Maxine here is because she created a legal system in her city state of Georgia that no one else has done to become licensed as basically a metaphysician slash, and I don't know if there are any other tools under that, but especially astrology. I know you're probably tired of hearing of having to repeat this, but I'm going to ask you to repeat it one more time. Why did you do that? What made you feel like astrologers, practitioners needed to be licensed? And what did they have to go through to become that? You went to your Congress, your House of Representatives, all the way to the state, right?
That's
To have this done?
That was the second phase. What
Okay.
I'll
We'll start with the first.
I will. I was an astrology student. This was in 1968 or 9. I mean, it was early on, and I knew about this much astrology, and I understood when I spoke to the older ladies. Of course, now I'm older than those older ladies were. Who had studied astrology for decades, and they said astrology is considered fortune telling. And I researched it in Cobb County, Georgia, and sure enough, it was. And it not only was illegal, but if you could come up with the $1,500 in 1968, $1,500 was like $15,000 today. So if you could come up with $1,500 and you would get a fortune teller's license. When I heard that, I went ballistic. I couldn't believe it. And so God spoke to me and said, well, let's legalize it. I said, do that. I'm going to do that, God. How do I do that? And so I went to the Cobb County License Division. And I sat there for months saying, can I have a meeting with the Cobb County commissioners? I want to talk to them. And the person in charge basically put me off for months. And I got so fed up because it occurred to me that it was going nowhere. So I left, and I was a school teacher at the time. And so I'd bring my knitting after school once a week. And I'd sit in the business license division's office and nothing happened. I was young. I didn't know. I mean, I was like 23 or something. And so I went to the chairman of the Cobb County Commissioners. His name was Ernest Barrett. Those people who live in Georgia or especially Atlanta know Barrett Parkway was named after this lovely man. And so I went to his office. The secretary wasn't there. So I knocked on his door. I mean, 23, what did I know? And so nothing against people who were 23, but I really was naive. And he opened the door and he was charming. And I told him I wanted a hearing with his commissioners. And I said, I want to get astrology taken off the books as fortune telling. He said, without a pause, we're meeting Tuesday evening at 7. I said, I'll be there, or whatever time it was. And I showed up and my knees were knocking. And I was last on the agenda and had to listen to all this, stuff that they go through at their meetings. And we talked about how people fish by the moon and the sign it's in, we quoted the Farmer's Almanac. I mean, these are the commissioners backing me up with all this information. You don't plant certain seeds on a full moon, or I'm not a farmer, so I can't really quote it accurately. And so they all agreed, because I went with each of them and told them about their sun sign. And astrology was removed from the books as fortune telling. And I was able to purchase the very first astrology license. Now, you could get one in some states that says entertainers, an entertainment license. No, it's not entertainment. Or it was dancing around it. This license said, this is to practice astrology. And the fee came down to $100 a year. And since it was November, they gave me the first license in the United States of America for $10. I was on cloud 9 driving home. I couldn't believe it, because I didn't do it. God did it. And so that was the first step. But then I realized that these lovely ladies that I was studying with for a couple of years, because they knew so much astrology and I knew about this much, I should make it available to them. Well, these were avid churchgoers, and they were nervous about introducing astrology and making it legalized because the church would frown on it and all that kind of stuff. I finally got their permission to get it legalized, and I did. At the time, I was teaching French and Spanish in a local high school. I also taught astrology to the teenagers I was teaching when they would bring me up a signed parental agreement slip saying that they had parents' permission to study astrology. And so one of the girls who I taught, I had said to her, I really want to legalize astrology in Atlanta. And she said, oh, my father's a congressman, a Georgia congressman. I'll have him call you. He called. That poor man didn't have a prayer. His daughter was studying astrology, and his mother had studied astrology. Now, I couldn't work this out myself. This was God in action. And to make a long story short, I was able to, through this lovely man, get astrology off the books as fortune telling in city of Atlanta, and it was called an astrology license. But then the group that I was working with said anybody, and now this is before internet. Nowadays, any Tom, Dick, or Harry can claim to be whatever, doctor, lawyer, Indian chief, astrologer, healer, whatever. And so I said, well, all of us agreed we needed an examining board who could test and work with the city of Atlanta to let the ones who passed the exam buy an astrologer's license. Fast forward, one of the people I knew socially was on the city of Atlanta. They didn't call it the city council then, but he was a city councilman. In plain English, I was dating him. And so he didn't have a prayer. He didn't have a prayer. And he introduced the examining board idea, and they agreed. And then we tried doing it statewide, but unfortunately, people in astrology tend to be just a little wacky, and they have their own ideas. And we got flack from some of our colleagues, and that statewide Georgia statewide bill never got off the ground. So when I moved into my current home in Cobb County, I found out that they had rescinded the law that I had made legal, that legalized it through my efforts. And I thought, okay, what do I do? And the person I spoke with was very officious. And I thought, give me a break. And so I said, well, what if I use the internet? And he said, oh, in that case, you don't need a license. Hello, I live in Cobb County now. So that's the history of how it happened. And we don't need licenses, which is a shame because the license protects the public. Which is why I encourage all of my students to study hard, and if they do, they'll learn all about astrology. And I only teach certain students. I mentor some of them, and that means we have a one-on-one session every single week, and I use their family charts as examples, and I teach them everything I know. Had to stop that with COVID because nobody could go to anybody's house and people were dying all over the place. And it was a terrible, terrible time for our world. And so I've resumed mentoring people, and I teach group classes on Zoom, our favorite Zoom, all around the world. Anybody, anywhere can get on Zoom. And so I'm back to teaching. I've been back to teaching. And I feel very, very led to share everything I know about astrology and spirituality and what comes after astrology. Because people think, oh, astrology is the be-all and end-all. No, it's not. It's a journey that can continue all by itself. Or what I discovered is astrology tells you the problem. You have to find the solution. And so I'm very passionate about helping my clients release their childhood programming that started when they were in mommy's womb. And my latest book does that. It's called Secrets from the Womb. And it's subtitled The Hidden Pact That Runs Your Life. And
I love that.
Thank you. I have a 3-step pattern that helps the student do that. And of course, testimony.
Are your books open for the public?
Oh, gosh.
Purchase?
Amazon carries all my books.
Public, listen to that. Amazon carries all her books.
I'm so grateful to Amazon. And you have to be ready for that book because it will blow your mind. It will literally.
No, I'm going to read it. I am.
And I felt like it was my, not swan song, but the rest of my testimony. And ever since writing that book, my life has changed totally.
When did you release it?
The book?
Mm-hmm.
About, a couple of months ago. It's a
newbie on the market.
Mm-hmm.
How many books have you written so far?
9.
9, she says.
Yeah.
I love it.
This is
I have a lot of writing to do. I have a lot of reading to do, don't I, Maxine?
Well, I've got astrology books, and then I've got books that are for releasing your programming. This one is your first sexual imprinting. I wrote this when when the news started sharing all kinds of inappropriate sexual advances from people in high places. And I don't know a woman who walks this planet. I do not know one single woman who was not molested, either mentally, emotionally, physically, or spiritually. And
Right.
now that I've cast it, what do I do with it? Was my first book. Because we didn't have computers, I taught the math part first. And that really weeded out the sincere from the insincere. And my students said, okay, now that I've cast it, what do I do with it? I don't know how to read it. That was the second part of it. This is a non-astrology. It's a science nonfiction book. The truth is in this book, but it has nothing to do with astrology. But it's now bearing fruit because it's happening. Okay, what your astrologer never mentioned is a smart-ass book on 12 signs, on all 12 signs. They make wonderful housewarming gifts, but if you put it in your guest bathroom, they're going to be in that room for a while because they're going to want to read it. Okay, here's the Secrets from the Womb book. Then I have one with a technique that covers about eight steps. Take back your money. It's my Take Back Your Life series. Move Into the Magic was the very first non-astrological book I had written. And of course, I give examples. People share their testimonials. Hidden Messages in the Birth Chart is for the psychologist in you. It tells you how to read mommy, daddy, the matriarch, and the should and ought to older generation relatives that set the tone for your life. But the tone is set when you're in utero. And this book, it's in the cards, is a simple card reading book for astrology students. You don't have to be an astrologer. Carolyn Dodson, the late Carolyn Dodson, was a dear friend of mine, and she taught me how to read regular old playing cards. I read them every single morning. They are dead on accurate, and I put her method, which was in the verbiage of the person who taught her, and then I added my own 2 cents at the end. And my mantra is very simple. My mantra for life, for you and everybody else, is your life, your rules. And that means you don't rebel necessarily, although some people do. I did. But you do it your way. You do what works for you. And I think this is one of the reasons my astrology students stay with me, because or the card reading astrology people, your cards, your rules. If you were given the freedom as a child, which I was not, most of us weren't, especially people our age, if we had been allowed to just express ourselves, to realize that we are God in an earthbound body, and that there's nothing more exquisite than that. And if we had been permitted to go with the flow rather than, don't do that, your grandma will be upset, or look, you're embarrassing your mother with your behavior, we would have a different planet. We would have a different persona. And so what I'm about is encouraging people to literally let go of the movie that runs their life, that they got when they were in utero. And it can be done like that quickly. And what happens is the next category comes up, and the next category. When you release it, you're back at home, and you know that you know that you know that you are God, and you come from love. And I think that's one of the reasons I'm always laughing now. I was always a very serious person, miserably unhappy as a child. We won't go into that. But now I have joy and I laugh at everything. I mean, with getting on the phone with this meeting, it's like, okay, well, it's going to work out. It's going to do it. This trial number 2, it's going to work out. And I'm always cracking jokes now because life is, even with the current governmental situation, I know that I know that I know it's going to turn out because I've forecast through the next, let's see, 24, 34, 40. I think I've forecast on my website, on my YouTube channel as well, what's going to be happening in the next decades, the next few decades. And it's all or nothing. And at first I was a little concerned. And then I thought, well, what kind of world do I want to live in? And that's when I was told, go back to teaching astrology. This was right after COVID. It left, quote unquote, left. And I mean, if that's all I can contribute, I would be so happy because we'd have more beautiful, loving astrologers. And the kind of astrologers that I attract, it's innate to the field, by the way, Elaine. They're very Uranian. They're very different. They ask themselves, am I crazy or is the world crazy? I mean, if they can say that, they're my student. So if they come from love, if they have a vision, do they have to be a world leader? No, they could be a lady selling lipstick in a department store. But their approach is universal. And so, they're different. They feel that they're different. And I say, welcome home. And I create classes to which I teach astrology of people who bond. There's no competition because I tell them, you're fabulous, deal with it. Well, I don't understand how to do aspects. Would you go over it again? Of course I'll go over it again. And that's what I'm doing next week in my class. Because when you're just learning astrology, you're overwhelmed, you're bombarded by information, and you have to go over it. And I tell them, I will never laugh at you because you're asking the same question 3 months into the class when you know what you're asking. So everything that when you come from love is healed and is more than satisfactory. And I'm finishing up one set of classes. Let's see. This is the end of July. I'm going to start a whole new series in either August. No, Mercury's retrograde then, in September. And I'm going to once again teach everything I know because I was told, do it. You've got the information. Share it to those people. Share it with those people who have tried to learn astrology and just couldn't get the hang of it, or who want to be astrologers. They've wanted to be astrologers since they were children. They just didn't realize it. And so I'm going to turn out, I already have turned out a bunch of people who are astrologers. And that's my contribution right now to our planet.
I always wanted to understand more about astrology. My specialty is the tarot, and astrology is scattered throughout tarot. I tell people I know just enough about astrology and numerology to get myself in trouble with tarot. But some people say, well, Elaine, there's a limited amount of both because each card has a number, but all the major cards have an astrological assignment as well. And then there's the Kabbalah, the 10 of Pentacles. Well, the Kabbalah you can study. In fact, I know Jewish people that have studied the Kabbalah, which is heavy in astrology and numerology, almost their entire adult life. So just that one card alone is a course within itself that I would love to share one of these days with a rabbi. That's one of my dreams, just to share that card study with a rabbi. I used to have a rabbi come talk about that card at my home. Anyway, years ago, another conversation. But I may try to take your course just so I'll know more. I have a book that I refer everybody to. It's called The Tarot, Astrology and Tarot, or Tarot and Astrology, just like tarot and numerology. They're both wonderful basic cards for that purpose. But I know there's so much more to both topics. And if you're teaching a course like that, the courses that I've been instructed to begin when I begin teaching again, which will probably be October, maybe November in tarot, they're going to be 16 to 18-month classes. I'm not doing quickie classes anymore. And so like you, that weeds out those that are, and I'm not supposed to have any more than 6 to 8, but I know it will dwindle down to 5 or 6. And that's okay. That's fine. They'll hang in there. But I'm glad you're doing it because you are one of the people that I wanted to draw attention to with this podcast of whose shoulders we stand on. And as a community, you will go in the legends category. Please know that. That's where you're going, both in the ancients and the legends category. You're one of the living legends, so to speak. It's important that you have been so open and so gracious with your knowledge because not everyone is. And you would do it, I think, even if spirit wasn't telling you to do it. I think you do it anyway. That's just what your heart is. But when I met you, I knew that you were going to be around for a long time because the universe had put you here to do exactly what you're supposed to be doing. And I turn 80 in a couple of days, and I know I'm going to be around until my early hundreds. Now, how much of the last 10 years of my life I'll be functional the way I function now, I don't know. But I think you're going to do the same thing. You're going to be around for a long time. Teaching, sharing. Sometimes I shy at the word teach. Sharing to me is a very important word because we get more and more information from both our clients and the people who come to us to learn or be reminded, as I like to say, of what they already know. We turn around and share that with people who come again. I think that's really important for the public to recognize. And I think what you said a while ago, I'll never laugh at you. I think is really important for a teacher or a mentor. Let me laugh with you, but not at you.
Oh, God.
And never be afraid to ask.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's basic. And parents govern, parents teach the way they were taught.
Sure.
And that's the problem very often. So one of my students said to me, "You're the mother I never had." And I would have been very offended years ago. And now I'm so honored. I just, there are no words. I said, "Call me your friend," because past a certain age, you're friends with your mom. And
yeah.
He said, "That's fine. I can do that." So you and I are on the same path. And what I would suggest to you that you do is find an Orthodox rabbi, because this is what I did. I went to see a Catholic priest, a Christian minister, and an Orthodox Jewish rabbi. Now, in Judaism, you've got 3 branches. I wanted the Orthodox one because they would be familiar with the Kabbalah. The ones that have that quickie schooling in Judaism don't get into that. Oh, but I shouldn't say don't. When I did my interviewing, that's how the rules were. And so I would find, if I were you, an Orthodox rabbi who, and tell him that you're interested in studying Kabbalah. Now, it's in Aramaic, if I remember correctly. But what happened was when I was introduced to this beautiful rabbi, I asked him about the Kabbalah and astrology, and he went over to this bookcase. It reminded me of Mickey Mouse and the Sorcerer's Apprentice. Pulled down that book. That book to me was the Kabbalah. And so he pulled down the Kabbalah, and I forgot. He was reading it right to left, and I thought, okay, this is the authentic one. And he read me the interpretation, the translation of the planet Saturn exactly as I had learned it and taught it. Why Saturn? Because that was the outermost planet back in Kabbalistic days when the Kabbalah was written. And with that, I thanked him because he gave me the permission I needed, and so did the minister and the priest. So I picked well. And he said, "Will you do my chart?" And
See?
I would be honored to do it. But unfortunately, he had been born in Germany during World War II, and all the records were burned.
Oh,
Yes. Excuse me. He was 1943. And the records were burned up during the war. But the Kabbalah has the answers. So find a rabbi that meets those qualifications, and you'll have a whole new life ahead of you.
I have about 6 or 7 books. Most of mine are very old. And I tell my students, I tell anyone that comes for conversation, read the oldest book, read the original. Even if you have to go struggle through a translation, read it, knowing that language changes with each generation,
Yes.
at least. So keep that in mind as you're doing that. But the truth doesn't change. We can try to change the truth and bend it to our needs, but it doesn't change. It doesn't change. So go as far back as you can. And the books that I have, most of them were written in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. But I always look at the bibliography to see where they got their research. And then I'll go try to find those, especially when it comes to anything metaphysical. And you get books written in German and French and Italian and whatever on all of our subjects because they're European based. Sorry, folks. What we've got here in the States is European based knowledge and some the Orient. But it's worth going down the rabbit hole. And the public domain is a confusing rabbit hole to go down because words change. Barbershops used to cut women's hair, or women's hair were cut at home. Beauty shops were not around until what, the 40s, something like that, 30s maybe. As such, they certainly didn't have the same beauty shop energy that we have today. So if you're trying to find something out about a beauty shop, you still have to go back and look at barbers.
Wow.
Especially tools. So when you go to the domain, you have to know your words are going to change. The meaning of the word will change. Now they try to help you. They'll send you down another arena, another arm, another whatever. The tarot doesn't change, but it changes in language. Tariachi, tarot is the same thing as tarot. But if you just see that, you're not going to shrink it down. And some languages leave the T off, Taro. It's still tarot.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that T is not pronounced. So why should that language have included it? But the original creator of the Rider-Waite deck included Tarot to honor the Oriental. So I can't help but believe, because of what I've touched about astrology in my books, that astrology could be the same too. One writer could have a way of describing or looking at than another one does. Let's say one in the 1800s versus one in the 1920s.
Yes.
But we need to know that so we can follow that trail of, you used the word interpretation a while ago. I usually tell my people, you do not interpret the tarot. They have a face meaning. You can explain them when they are surrounded by other cards, but you can't change the individual meaning. Now, for you can't change your meanings either. Saturn means one thing. When it's doing this aspect thing, you can't change it. What does it mean to the person whose chart you cast? That's where you get to shine with that knowledge that you have. I think that's my opinion. Am I wrong?
No. And that means that astrology is limited to a certain degree because if it's carved in stone, and people think it is for sure, they forget that we are the creators of our life. But we are programmed early on in utero. And so we have the choice. We can go. I always say life is a movie, because if you know somebody for a long while, you can predict what they're going to do with somebody they've just met, for example, or how they buy a car. Some people buy a car impulsively, others check out cars at different auto shops, etc. You have your choice as to how to function. And if you keep doing the same thing and you're failing, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And that stayed with me. And I thought, well, what can I do to help people break free? I have, chains that are broken on my womb book, so that they can be the beautiful light, the beautiful God that they are. And I say that literally, because once one of my teachers years ago said, "Have you had an experience of God?" And I thought, I said, well, when I saw my first UFO, I had an out of body experience. But I didn't know so when I wrote my latest book, The Womb, I knew, because I was it, and I was delirious with joy. And I found out that the thing that holds people down is that they think they're not good enough. They think they're bad, and they cannot forgive themselves no matter how hard they try. It keeps coming up over and over and over again. And so I thought about that, and I thought there has to be a different system for releasing it. And I found the system that I think works, and I put it in my book. I'm the first guinea pig. I am the guinea pig for this new method, and I don't know what to call it. I may be calling on you to give me some suggestions, Elaine, because we are cut from the same cloth. This is unknown territory. My last book delves into unknown territory, and it works.
That's exciting in a way because it is new to you and maybe new to the planet, the methodology, and you're exploring that, but you're going to get to make it happen as you grow with it.
Yes.
And not everybody can do that. So this book is really the beginning of a trilogy.
I was afraid you were going to say that.
Sorry, Psychic's coming out now. Sorry. You've got 2 more books in at least, if not a fourth being the foundation. So 3 is the unity number, 2 things coming together to make a third. That's why I think Spirit has you doing at least 3, if not 4. And the 4th one would be the last one, because now people can take all 4 of those, use that as a true foundation to bounce off with the number 5, which is what's next. And they go have their own experience.
Yes. Oh, thank you.
With what you've taught in those books.
Thank you so much for that.
Sorry, that's more work for you.
It is, but what else am I got to do? This is my purpose. And I had said, I'm just on hold. I need my next step. And usually I get my step a year ahead. I have gotten zip. When I've asked, it's like crickets. Wow, nothing. Nothing. So thank you so much. This is new turf. And there are people, good people out there, beautiful people. Because how do I know? Because when you come from love, that's all you attract.
Right.
It's not that you're so gorgeous. That's when you come from love. And children and dogs and cats recognize that. Horses, they recognize that. They want the love. And that's why if you have a cat that is snarling and all that, and you walk into the room and it just sits there and washes itself, it's comfortable with you. And that's why, what I do very often? I walk through my favorite supermarket, and I smile at people. And what I've seen is I've done this since COVID, which is, heavy duty. People love to smile unless they're having a really terrible day, but it brings out the love in them. And I'll compliment people on their clothes or whatever sincerely, because when you come from love, all you see is beauty. When you come from love, all you give is love. And children recognize that. Oh
Yes.
my goodness. So, I wind up buying groceries I don't need because I need the love that is there in the world. I'm in my home now, and it's a very lovely home, but and I use it for readings and videos and all that. But going out into the world now, is just lovely. And there are some places I don't go. I'm told don't go there because it could be dangerous. There could be a problem that evolves. So I listen very carefully and I avoid whatever I am led to do. I listen to that. And anybody, Elaine, you know this, anybody can do that. All they have to do is unblock. They just don't
And
know.
trust. Most people do not trust the voice. They just don't. They think it's their fear. They're just afraid of something, or I shouldn't do that based on what my mom taught me years ago. And they don't get that it could be one of their guides saying, then that's not go there. Let's not do that. I had that happen in an airport. And it's short, sweet, silly story. I do not like to go to the bathroom on flights. And I know you can't stop it depending on how long the flight is. You just can't. So, but I always go one last time before I get on the flight. I happen to be with a companion, so I took my purse, which I will do always, but I left my backpack with my friend, and I said, I'll be right back. And then it was like I ran into a wall. Like I literally, it felt like I hit something. And I turned around and I called her name, and she said, well, come back here. So I walked back to her, and then I walked to the bathroom. But something stopped me at the door, and I heard an explosion. Something had happened with their water main. Had I been in the bathroom, I would have been in the one that got hit with metal or water or bad. It was bad for 3 people that were in there.
Well,
And this was in Dallas. And I mean, water, things broke, exploded. I mean, metal, the stalls were ripped apart. I mean, it was amazing. Had I been any closer, I would have been dramatically hurt. There were 5 people. All of them had 5 grown women. Thank God there were no little ones in there that were seriously injured that day. Seriously. Besides the watery mess, that happened, and some stuff went through the wall, and a popcorn vendor got popped and outside, but water was getting into people. I mean, they were having to slosh through the water, they had to pick up their suitcases and stuff like that. But I hit a wall, literally could not go any further. And then I turned back around to her, walked back. That's all the time it took to not be allowed to go into that bathroom.
I love it.
Just that quick. But had that wall not been there, I wouldn't have listened. I would have just forged right ahead, because that's my habit at an airport. Just one more time. And it may have been my last time.
Yes.
Had I gone in. So I get it. We have to trust the feelings that we have and the real voices, even if it sounds like our voice. It's better if we hear another voice, which sometimes our guides will do. We tend to pay attention to those more. I've always told my students, especially when I was teaching psychic development, if you forget something and you have to go home, don't worry about it. You weren't supposed to be on the road. Or you were supposed to go home to prevent, like unplug an iron in the old days, or hair rod, or lock a door you forgot to lock, or whatever, or just not be on the road. That's happened to me and a number of people I know. You get back on the road and you see the wreck and you go, uh-oh. That could have been me. Yeah.
Yeah.
But trust is so hard for people who are on their just beginning their journey or picking up a journey that they had put on hold for a long time. Trust is huge. And I trust astrology. if an astrology person tells me something, I'm going to double listen. I'm going to double listen. And I tell people all the time, if you're going to get an astrology chart, get a backup for a numerology, and the same thing. Do both. Watch the duplications, because there will be duplications.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. Yes, the duplications, because they
Yeah.
adapt.
And I tell people that at psychic fairs, who else should I go see? Well, I try not to refer people to people. The first thing I ask is, what are you looking for, any tool in particular? Because sometimes we only have one person, and I'll say, that's the only one here. See if you blend. See if you connect. Exchange a smile or something. See if you connect. If you don't, wait to get that tool. But in the meantime, get at least 3 readings. Ask your questions. If you're asking questions exactly the same way, don't change a word. And the things that you hear more than once, that's what you need to pay attention to.
That's great. That is beautifully put, and sage advice.
Well, thank you. But I'm sure you do the same thing. I'm sure you do the same thing
Well, they
when it
never
comes to duplications.
they seem to be so pleased with their readings. And you know what I found, Elaine? I don't know who the new kids on the block are, which is why I'm interested in this format that you're working on with me. It's like, I don't know who's written what book, because I'm so busy with my practice. I'm so busy writing my own books. Because when I sit down to write a book, it becomes all consuming. So I don't know who to recommend, is what I'm saying, if they were to ask me, because I'm not out there. And when I met you way back then, I had friends, and we laughed and said that the person who goes from psychic to psychic is a seersucker, like the fabric. They wear seersucker. And I thought, yeah, but when it first blossomed, the dawning of the age of Aquarius, oh my goodness, there was a psychic around every tree, on every corner, and they had metaphysical bookstores, and it was wonderful. It was just great. And then the economy didn't, function cooperatively, and they went out of business. But there are some
that up and down stuff. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, there are books. There's one bookstore. I'm vice president of the American Federation of Astrologers, and Dave Campbell, our president, has a thriving astrological bookstore, which is so great. I think it's very appropriate that the president of the AFA have a thriving astrological bookstore, but he has other metaphysical things as well. And I'm always happy to see that his business is thriving, because a lot of the businesses that we had during the age of Aquarius, the dawning of the age of Aquarius, they're out of business now, which is
when I was saying about the duplication thing, I was talking about the word trust and focus. If you don't trust what you're getting, then do a different tool.
Yeah.
And see if a different tool tells you the same thing. And eventually, those of us that are in this world, in business as it is, we learn to trust legends like you. There's no reason to go anyplace else.
Oh.
When you find the best of the best, why waste your time? Take what that person says and run with it and do with it. Don't spend any more money. Once you find somebody that you meld with, and you trust that person and their knowledge and their wisdom, then you don't need the duplicates. But if you don't trust your own voices, then that's another way of teaching that person to trust if they hear the same thing from two people who know what they're doing,
And
or two tools
that's a
that know what they're doing.
brilliant idea. It really,
It's a teaching them as well kind of thing. What
yeah.
is the name of your president's shop? Where are they?
The Astrology Bookstore. It's outside of Tempe, Arizona. Oh shoot, it's I always forget the name of the town, but you have to drive from AFA headquarters out for a while to get there, and it's large. He's got everything available. You just Google Dave Campbell or astrology, the astrology store. It'll get you.
There you go, public. There you go. If you're in the area, pop in there. If you're not, look him up on Google and see what else he has to offer online, and if that can be helpful to you in terms of reference material, that sort of thing. That'd be great. Reference. I love it when people say, "Well, what books did you read first? What classes? Who taught you?" And so many of those teachers are no longer with us, but who's mentoring you now? Well, that's a very private. Mentors are a very private thing.
Yes,
But yeah, but a lot of times, like you said, you teach, and then those that stick around, you end up mentoring. And I think that's a valuable energy for those people to have. But I always say, we were talking about that a while ago. Find the oldest books on the subjects and read those and follow them through the centuries, come forward through the centuries and see how the language has changed, the opinions have changed, and come up, and you'll carry all that old stuff with you, so that when you get to a book that is just total regurgitation, you'll know to put it down.
Yes.
Because you already have the information. You don't need to read it again by a different person. So that's important. But what you're doing right now is you're sharing the knowledge, ancient knowledge that you learned when you were a beginner, and you're bringing that forth into today's world and teaching today's people how to use that, plus everything you've learned along the way.
Yes.
Not every teacher does that. They stick with what is in the last 20 years capsule.
Oh,
That's what I've learned. Yeah.
isn't that interesting? Well, you know what? That's where they are. That's where they are. I want to keep moving forward, because when you stop moving forward, you leave the planet permanently. I mean, that's when you don't have a passion, when you don't have something that gets you out of bed in the morning and you're excited about. And that's what COVID did to us. We lost all hope. And it was
I would agree with that.
sad time. And you don't know who you can believe. Well, there's only one person you can believe, and that's the God within. When
I love the way you said that.
Uh,
God within.
yeah.
How hard did you find it when you first started to become a professional and charge for your charts? How hard was it during that time? Was it easy? Was it hard? Was it accepting?
Well, first of all, I was the only one doing it. And so it's like I primed the pump. And some of the people who came for readings were really fascinating. I knew what I didn't know. And I knew I had to study because I couldn't. I was a rank amateur when I legalized astrology, and the group I was studying with, the older ladies, they had forgotten more than I knew. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
So I didn't have the confidence. And finally, after 4 years, a situation emerged where I didn't have the time to even look at the chart before the client showed up at my house, because back then you read people in your home. And I just winged it. And it was the best reading I thought I had ever done. And she said, I've been to other astrologers, and this was a super reading. And I thought, thank you, God. Because I had spent the day taking one of my girlfriends to different doctors because she was sick. and I didn't get a chance to even look at the chart before the client arrived. I mean, it was cold. So, and I've always had a problem with my rates because I know so many people who need astrology, especially now, can't afford it. So I do specials periodically, like Christmas special or something along those lines, to help people splurge on a reading for themselves or a loved one, because I know they're worried about grocery money. The world is in a funky place right now. And then I have friends who are multimillionaires and say, you are not charging what you're worth. And I said, I understand that, but I don't want to stop doing astrology because my rates are so high. So anyhow, I've worked it out where I'm comfortable with what I charge, and I'll move forward slowly.
I've had all kinds of other professionals, therapists, psychologists, doctors, even attorneys, say psychics, and you fall under that. I want to talk about that with you in a minute. People who know what they're doing in our field are the most underpaid therapists ever.
Yes.
And when a doctor or a therapist tells you that, who is charging $400 or $500 an hour or more for their work, that hits you hard. Well, why can't we? Well, because for years it was for entertainment only. And you have your laws in Georgia, in Texas. I don't know if it's spread since then, but in Texas, we cannot put the word counselor on any advertising. We can't, anything that implies the word counselor, even the word mediator. There's a whole list of names of words that we cannot put on our cards or advertising unless we have an appropriate education where we can put the L's, whatever, behind it.
Yes.
And we have those in our field.
Yes.
And we have one lady here in Austin that was a therapist for, 30 years, but she also practiced shamanism and teaches shamanism. So the board got a hold of her and said, you've got to do one or the other. We cannot license you while you mix metaphysics with science. So she gave up her license, but she still counsels, but she also does shamanism, and she still teaches, but it's all under the umbrella of shamanism. But everybody that goes to her knows that she was a licensed therapist. They don't need to have that behind her name. She knows how to do her practice, and she's successful on both sides. Karen Hutchins is her name. She even makes, teaches people how to make drums.
Wow.
I mean, she's a true shaman. She's a true healer and has studied with some of the best. But in our field, it is hard to adjust our income rates because I've had more than one person say, well, if it's a gift, why don't you gift us with your knowledge? And I've tried very kindly to say, because I have bills. If you're willing to pick up my electric bill this month, I will be glad to do 4 or 5 readings for you. Oh, is this all you do? Yes, this is all I do now. But they don't realize that we've been wives, mothers, grandmothers. We have degrees in other things. We've studied. We've owned businesses. We bleed. We have joy in our lives. We have grandchildren, but we still have bills.
Yes.
And no, I don't have a real estate license anymore. I gave it up a long time ago. I could teach again if I wanted to, but I choose not to because I want to spend my time doing this.
Yes.
So I have to charge you or have an exchange of some sort. You want to bring me 5 dinners, plates of food next week? You're a good cook. I'm good with that. That'll save on my grocery bill. Yeah, there has to be. Plus, when we have an exchange of some sort, that person is more likely to take seriously what is said.
And that's
what is shared.
True. And there's a spiritual balance.
Mm-hmm.
Give and take. Actually, not take, but receive, give and receive. Yeah, it's
Yes.
got to be balanced. Think of Libra, the balance.
Oh, Libra.
So,
Libra. Libras and Capricorns have been my most challenging relationships my entire life.
mm,
And I'm a Leo, so I'm not sure how much that has to do with it. But looking back, those are the two sides that I've had the most difficulty with finding a nice medium. And all but one of those people I've found nice peaceful space in between.
oh,
Their efforts and mine
yes,
on both sides.
beautiful. Well, I want
What's
to.
next for you?
Oh,
You want to do what? Tell me.
what, honey?
Tell me what you want.
What do I want?
You said
Oh,
you started a sentence. What do you want?
I want love and truth.
Oh, truth and love. They're both such fluid words, aren't they?
I mean, I'm thinking of my own chart. The planets that rule love and truth are right at the top. And that's what I do. That's what I do.
I can't imagine you doing anything else.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I'm an educator. I have my degree in education.
Do I?
Came in very, very handy because in education, you have to be articulate. You have to be able to, I mean, at least back then, and teaching foreign languages, which I did, you have to be able to speak. So when you're faced with a group of teenagers who might be giving you a hard time and you're able to calm them down and make friends with them and be their teacher, I mean, to me, that's a joy. That's an absolute joy. And it prepared me for when I was CNN's on-air astrologer, because that's live TV. I love live TV. Most people are terrified of live TV because once you've verbalized it, it's out there. You've said it. I love it.
Yeah.
And I've made predictions. And this one host said, "Oh, you're not allowed to talk about that on the air." I said, "Well, I already have.
A
Live,
little late now.
a little late now." Yes, absolutely.
So they didn't make you hand in a script? You got to fly as you wanted to.
I love that. Uh,
Um,
flying low. Yes. Because it keeps it fresh. It's like we don't have a script. You're asking me questions and I'm answering them. And it's fresh. It's not scripted because if you watch the TVs that are scripted, it, it's stilted. They're told what to say, and that's in the newsroom, you know. Just it comes over the wire, and they have to be very careful what they say. I don't like that. And that's why I haven't done a lot of TV work recently. I just love what I do.
Can you hear my cat?
No. Can you put her on screen?
If she'll let me pick her up. She's here to tell me that there's someone walking outside.
Oh,
She's my little watch cat. Come here, Zoe. Come here, baby. No? I know you want me to follow you to the door, but I can't do that right now.
well, she lets you live at your house.
And I did see, probably my landlady, I did see someone walk in front, I have slatted windows, so I could see. And Zoe came in and started telling me about it.
Oh,
Yeah. She's quite the advisor. I wanted to ask you about the types of astrology. I know there are multiple methods.
hmm
So what method do you use the most, or is it possible to blend what you do?
Well, I use my own method. And I follow the traditional astrology laws. Let me think, how can I put this? When I pick up a chart, I just look at it and my eye draws me to where I'm supposed to start. And I tell the person I'm reading, I'll get back to, here's the 11th house. Well, I've got to do house 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. But and they tell me when I can move on. So I'm always listening within, and I'll be drawn back to that house if I have to say more. So and that's how I discovered I was an empath. When I became the client, there was no judgment. And I had a lady come see me, God, years ago. It had to be 60 years ago. And she was very self-centered and selfish. And I looked forward to mentioning that to her. So she came to the door and she was delightful. She was adorable. And so when it was time for me to tell her what a selfish person she was, I danced around it. I couldn't say it. And she put her hand on mine and said, "Let me help you, Maxine. I'm selfish." And I said, "Oh, no, you're not." I mean, talk about, because I became her. And she knew herself. I didn't make her bad. She didn't make herself bad. But, and then as I grew, I realized that your clients are telling you what your own personal du jour happens to be. And the more important it is to you, if you don't get it, they'll send you another client with the same chart, pretty much. Same deal. And I went through that one time. The time I learned it, there was somebody I really cared about, and we had broken up, and it was incredibly painful. And the message I got for all my clients was, if you make it through June, you'll be fine. Well, it was like wintertime, and it became a joke. See, I still didn't realize that I was psychic. And so they would send me all these people. And finally, I got somebody on the phone, and I said, "Listen, you don't have to come over here. I'll tell you what your forecast is. If you make it through June, you'll be fine." And it occurred to me after I hung up, wait a minute, I've said that at least 10 times in the past 10 days, 20 days, whatever. And that's when I realized that spirit, that my guides were talking to me, that beings on the other side were sending me the ideal client to help me get through heartbreak, sorrow and sadness. And once I realized that, I can't tell you how I looked forward to my readings, because not only were they giving me payment, but they were giving me information. And that's when I realized that the law of attraction works across the board. And if you listen, everything is a sign. Everything is part of your movie. And so I don't share that very much, and now I've shared it with you, but it's true.
I understand, because psychics and I have talked about the same thing. Clients that come that are either exiting a situation that has been difficult for them, or they're about to enter. Like, I've had people sit down and they filed for divorce the week before.
Mm-hmm.
They want to talk about it, or something else is going on in their life. And when you get a certain amount of those, one right after the other, you have to stop and think, what am I supposed to be learning here? What am I supposed to be hearing? And then boom, you get pushed into something similar or exactly the same thing.
Absolutely right, honey. So I thought, I'm getting a gift from the cosmos. I'm getting a gift from God. This precious angel who is sitting before me, nowadays it's on Zoom, has a message for me. And you gave me my message.
I could just see the last the last page of that book, of the fourth one. So what is next?
Oh,
Written
wow.
down at the bottom. The last sentence of the last book of the fourth book. So what's next? Because number 5 is the what's next number.
Oh, wow. Oh, thank you for that. Well, you know what? I will acknowledge you for that.
Oh, you're a sweetheart. I just saw that when you and I were talking, and I thought, well, that would be appropriate. What's next? You've got a foundation. What's next?
Yeah, deal with it.
I'm very serious. Spirit was very serious. Those 4 books would actually absolutely give somebody everything they need, the foundation for their what next.
Oh,
You included.
thank you so much, because I'm asking that now of Spirit. And so
The what? Yeah.
what's next? Because I'm ready. Of course, I'm inundated with clients, and I'm not sure how I would fit it in. We're going to have to add
You will.
a week, you know.
No, you'll find a way. One of the things that I've learned, and I know you have too, you just don't remember it right now, or you're not ready to say it online, is that when Spirit wants us to do something, the phone doesn't ring. We have free time. Or things like my Mike had so many medical issues and surgeries over the last 2.5 years. I was there for him. While I was there for him, I was doing things I needed to do for me in terms of journaling, planning, scaping things out, keeping my organizational. And then when he was back at work, safe and sound, I could hit the floor running with this. But it was easier because I had time to research and plan.
Oh,
So when it's time for you to start the next book, finish whatever you're going to finish, the what next. It's not that your clients will stop calling. It's just that you'll be able to manage them a different way.
and it'll be a different clientele because I will be different.
Yes. I know you have something behind us. How are you doing for time?
I have I have a minute. I have a minute.
We talked about your legacy a while ago, what you would like for people. What else would you like to leave with us before we say goodbye?
That if you've watched this video between 2 dear friends who have reconnected, and if we are speaking to you, just Google us and we will get back to you.
And this, I hope, will not be our last time. We're not sure if Adam will break this up. He may not, into more than one section, or if he will leave it together. We don't know. So, public, stay with us, but we will always let you know when Maxine Taylor is going to join us again, because I've made a list of things I want to talk to her about as we were going through this. I won't keep you any longer, Maxine. Take care of yourself, please. I'm looking forward to reading all of those books, plus the ones that you're going to write.
Thank you, Dawn.
Thank you for sharing your wisdom.
And may the stars shine brightly on everybody out there.
Mwah! Take care, darling. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning into the Conversations with the Ancients, where we take you on a journey where you'll hear voices of metaphysicians from the past, as well as today's spirit mediums, healers, and others who show you a side of the paranormal you've never seen before. Remember to visit our website at conversationswiththeancients.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on Conversations with the Ancients.